I want to tell you a story. It's something that happened recently, about a brilliant young writer and a discovery that truly shook me to my core.
So, this story, it all begins with a young man named Ashar Farouk, and I have to tell you, I just love his work. I mean, this kid is one of the real rising stars of our literature, a true master of both poetry and prose. You know, the kind of writer who just pulls you into their world with such force that you simply can't escape until you've read the very last word? Yeah, that's him.
Right, so I talk about him a lot. I often praise him in my gatherings, holding him up as this shining example of pure, unadulterated talent. So you can probably imagine my surprise, my shock really, when he came to me and showed me his latest poem. I took it from him and I read it, and I was just so startled. The words they just came out of my mouth before I could even think. I looked him right in the eye and I asked, Ashar, who wrote this poem? And his reaction? Well, his reaction told me absolutely everything I needed to know.
He kind of looked down, embarrassed, and then he composed himself and replied, really shyly, actually, I asked AI to write it, and then I just edited it a little. I was speechless, just completely speechless. This was the same young man I'd been calling the next great voice of our generation. And now he was relying on a machine for his art.
On my way home, this one question just kept circling and circling in my mind. Can a machine really do what was once considered the domain of a human heart and mind? It just wouldn't leave me alone. I actually spent days thinking about it, researching, just trying to get my head around what this really meant for all of us.
So finally, I went back to see him. I had this little bundle of papers in my hand. See, I'd conducted a little experiment of my own. I laid the papers out on the table in front of him. Look, Ashar, I said, I asked an AI to write a ghazal, which, if you don't know, is a kind of amatory poem, and I asked it to write in the style of the great master Mirza Khalib. And I pointed out how, just on the surface, it was technically flawless.
I mean, the AI did everything right. The words it used were refined. The thought behind it seemed mature. The rhyme and the meter, they were perfect. It literally ticked every single box of poetic form.
But then I asked him, but do you know what this ghazal is missing, even after being so complete? And I let that question hang there in the air for a moment. I wanted him to really feel that gap between technical perfection and, well, true soul.
It lacked the emotion, the pain, that sigh of dawn that is the absolute essence of Ghalib's poetry. It was perfect on paper, but it felt completely hollow. It was incomplete, even in its own completeness.
And it just reminded me of what my childhood teacher, Master Jamil, used to say to me. He'd tell me, son, writing is not just joining words, it is pouring the heartbeat of your chest onto paper. And, that's it, isn't it? That's why no two writers ever truly sound the same.
And this really gets to the fundamental difference between us and the machines that we create.
I mean, this is really the first, most basic question we have to ask ourselves, isn't it? Does an AI have a heart?
Think about it. Has it ever truly cared for someone? Has it ever known the pain of love? Has it ever cried? I mean, if the answer to all of these questions is no, and of course it is, then how can it ever truly master emotion in writing? It's because our writing, human writing, it comes from experience. When a farmer writes about the earth, you can practically smell the soil in his words. When a laborer writes about his work, you can almost feel the blisters in his sentences. See, our words, they come from the heart, from the soul. And AI's words, they come from data, from calculation.
So this brings us to what I honestly believe is the biggest danger of our era, and it's a critical question about where we are all heading. So, we have to weigh its potential as a helpful tool against the very real threats it poses. On the one hand, sure, it can help organize our ideas, but on the other, it could lead to a total loss of originality, a serious decline of creativity, maybe even the death of literature as we've always known it.
Let me put it this way. Just like mangoes from Hyderabad taste different from the ones from Multan because, the soil and the sun give them this unique flavor, every single writer's work carries their own joys, their sorrows, their dreams. It's this uniqueness, this personal flavor that comes from a life actually lived that's at stake here. An AI, it has absolutely none of that.
So, what do we do?
What's the path forward? Well, the answer isn't to just abandon AI completely. That's not it. Because if we just turn our backs, dishonest writers are just going to flood the market with machine-generated junk. Readers' tastes will dull, and this door to literary decay will just swing wide open. And trust me, that will be its own kind of disaster. No. Instead, my advice is to take a much more balanced approach. Look, first and foremost, you have to write your own work. Let every writer create personally, from their own heart. Then, you can use AI as a helper, as a tool, but never ever as the creator itself. Use it to polish your writing, sure. Use it to check your grammar or enrich what you've done with information. That's fine.
This is the mindset we really have to adopt. You have to use it with caution, just like you'd avoid the bones while you're eating fish. Be deliberate, be careful, take the good parts and leave the bad behind.
And this is exactly what I ended up telling Ashar. I said to him, do not stop hunting. Use the modern tools, of course, but never ever hand your heart over to the machine.
And I left him with a warning. It's the same warning I want to leave with you as we all try to navigate this strange new world. If you hand everything over to the machine, one day you will find that the very same net has trapped you, and you'll be left with nothing but regret.